All right. Welcome, everybody, to a live episode of Mike's Money Picks. This is a very special episode. This is our last live show of the 2025 college football season. And I'm joined by my co host, Zac Green, a.k.a. Big Country DFS. Zac, can you believe that we've made it all the way here from week 0?
No, that's what sucks about football is you're always waiting all summer to get here. Feels like it's going to take forever to get here, and then all of a sudden it's gone. We got a game tomorrow, a game Friday, and then we have only one more game after that.
It's crazy how it flew by because like I was talking to my wife the other day, and she's like, "Wait a minute, it's over already?" She's like, "It just seems like you were watching Maction the other night." I'm like, "Yeah, that's kind of how it feels, right?" Like, it's insane how fast this goes. So yeah, that does kind of make this a bittersweet episode. If you have been tuning in with us all season long, thank you for joining us. If you're just tuned in with us tonight to hear us break down these Final Four games, thank you for joining us. Remember, we are directed by you guys in the chat. So if there's a player you want to hear about, a strategy you want to talk about, let's say you're not playing DFS, let's say you're betting player props or doing underdog drafts or something like that, let us know in the chat, and we will do our best to give you guys the information that you want and need. Now, I do wonder, because I was very vocal about potentially being late tonight, Zac. I do wonder if we're a little slow to start because we were actually on time.
Yeah, it could be that, or 10:20 on the East Coast for you. Some people may be in bed, but
no, I will say
I know people will be watching later. So
I will say I was very happy to see once I got, because I had a high school basketball game to coach tonight. We won. I was very happy to take a look at my phone and see the time once we got in the locker room after the game. It's like, yes, like I'm going to be able to do it on time, because I was getting nervous because, and this is not me trying to brag in any way. Please don't make it sound like that. But we were up about 20 in the fourth quarter, and their coach was calling timeouts. Like I'm talking like full on, like still trying to set up a press and win the game. And I did not want to be that guy to like yell across the car, like, "Hey, bro, I got a live stream in an hour." I don't think that would have went over well. So
who's called timeouts down 20 though?
So I've kind of grappled with it, because part of it's like, bro, I want to get home. The other part of it is like, hey, like if you're gonna be a coach and you're gonna preach that I want my guys to play all 32 minutes, then you kind of got to walk the walk on it. But timeouts might have been a little far. You can demonstrate that without calling timeouts. And it's so much so that this was also funny. Their guy that did the scorers table, their coach asked how many timeouts he had like after he called one with about 2 minutes left, and the scorers table told him none. And then he turned to us, like our coaching staff, and said he actually has one, but if he calls it, I'm going to punch him in the face. So we were all ready to go home. So happy to be home and here on this stream. I see we got our guy Darren in the chat. Darren, you are not a first-time commenter. You know this. Very happy to have you back. Darren's basically been our season ticket holder, for being honest. Well, like Darren's been here through thick and thin. Loyalty. All right. So Zac, you ready to go ahead and dive in and break down these two games?
Yeah, might as well.
All right. So I still need to set up the screen sharing. So while I'm setting it up, why don't you tell the people where they can find the spreadsheet that they're about to see on their screen?
Yeah, they can find it on the Fantasy Corner Discord, or the Big Country DFS Discord, or Big Country DFS on Twitter. And as we mentioned, if you like college football, join us for college basketball too. It's fun. I like it more than college football, honestly. The only thing that sucks is the contests are terrible. But
I agree.
If more of you guys will get on there, then maybe we can get them bigger. But it seems like everybody just wants to play college football and doesn't really want to give 2 cents about college basketball. But trust me, and you can ask Darren, he's mentioned the same thing. Just using the sheet for college basketball, and you can pretty much min cash almost every night just by using the sheet. And so I encourage you to check that out. With football wrapping up, especially after NFL gets over, the contest should be bigger, and especially for March Madness.
Yeah, I hope that college basketball DFS continues to grow. It's been It's been a slow start of the season. But yeah, if you like college football, everything that you like about college football is available in college basketball. If you like the fact that, hey, I'm not going up against a whole lot of optimizer bros and sim bros and a whole lot of people paying for premium content, then college basketball is one of the last sports for DFS that you can do that with. And with a little bit of research and a little bit of ball knowledge and help from people like me and you and others in the Discord, you can win at college basketball DFS. So it's a little shameless self-promotion there. So let's go ahead and dive into these two games as we do at the start every show. Let's talk about the game environments. So here's the crazy thing, Zach. As I am building my lineups, I have this impression in my mind that there's this huge gap between the Miami Ole Miss game and the Indiana Oregon game. It just feels like this massive gap in game environment. Yet when I look at the spread and when I look at the total, it's only a 4.5 point difference. Am I crazy for thinking that there's this big of a gap between the two? Or is Vegas right? Is it that actually close in terms of the two game environments?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling that way too. Just because Ole Miss doesn't really play defense, but they think that Ole Miss is going to be able to put up points on this Miami defense. And so that's something that, could be looking at, is if you think Miami's going to shut down Ole Miss or at least, keep them contained a little bit better than Georgia did, you could be looking at those totals being flipped in Indiana, Oregon being higher. Mm-hmm. And same thing with that game, Indiana, Oregon. I know Indiana's going to put up points. The question I have is Oregon going to be able to put up points?
If Oregon can score with them.
And so it's kind of a tricky slate, to be honest. And with it being spread out over two nights, that's interesting as well.
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. The fact that it is a Thursday and Friday. I get that they don't want to go head to head against the NFL, but hey, college football, if you don't want to go head to head against the NFL playoffs, do this a week earlier.
Yeah, move everything up. And
yeah, like sorry, Army Navy, we can move your game up a little bit to move everything else up a little bit, and it would just everything would work better. But yeah, you're right. Like it just. There's pathways on this slate. It's a tricky slate, but there's pathways. And I think part of the reason why I feel like the Miami slate is a better game environment is because it feels like it's a little bit more predictable in terms of who's going to score. I feel like the offenses in the Miami Ole Miss game are a lot more condensed than the offenses in the Indiana Oregon game.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm looking up this question that Darren's asking. So
yeah, that's a valid question. Has Miami faced many mobile quarterbacks?
Kevin Jennings. But the fun thing about it is that was the game that they beat Miami. But he didn't run at all.
No, because he was hurt. He was coming off of an injury.
Lagway didn't do anything. Kyron Jones, if you can consider him, he's trash.
He got there in garbage time.
He didn't do anything. CJ Bailey had 2 interceptions. Like they have faced some mobile quarterbacks, but they pretty much have shut them down.
Marcel Reed, I would count, but the wind really makes that.
That game was all screwy. But Reed was their leading rusher with 27 yards.
Okay, here we go. This is back in September. Tommy Castellanos, Florida State, he ran for 57 yards against them.
Yeah, but I would say that Miami, Florida State, the Louisville, and the SMU games was whenever Miami wasn't playing like they are now.
I need to find how many sacks they had, though. So give me 1 second. Miami only sacked Castellanos twice.
Yeah. But like I said, that back in October and even November, whenever they lost to SMU, they were playing a lot different, especially on defense, than they are now.
Absolutely.
So that would be the thing there.
So here would be my biggest takeaway from what we're just talking about, Zach. If you were to just say, hey, I'm going to fade the Ole Miss offense or I'm going to fade the Miami offense, and I'm going to build out a pretty big stack of Indiana, Oregon, do you think that lineup's going to be pretty unique?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was actually just messing around with one of the optimizers that I have access to, and literally it spit out all players except for one from Miami Ole Miss. So
Interesting.
basically, all the chalk is going to be on that game. The two highest owned quarterbacks, the two highest owned running backs, and then the highest owned receiver, which after the one, everybody knows who it is, Malachi Tony. It's no secret. But after him, like they have him projected at 70%, and then the next highest receiver at 36. So
Wow.
it's kind of spread out on receiver after Tony.
Yeah, that really feels like it really feels like that's going to be where the slate's won and lost is, can you get receiver right for all these teams? Because there's a lot of, now the good news is pretty much every team on this slate, they only throw to 4 guys, but the bad news is that they all do throw to 4 guys. So that gives you a ton of options and combinations.
I think I think Ole Miss is being a lot more condensed the last couple games with Wallace and Stribling.
Agreed.
He was pretty much only thrown to those 2 guys against Georgia. Caden Lee had a few targets. Daquan Wright, the tight end. And then, but like Deuce Alexander and Winston Watkins, some guys that were getting looks earlier in the year, basically were not even a part of that game plan. But then on Indiana, like you said, they still threw to Becker even with Cooper back, and they're throwing to Surratt too. And then Miami was thrown to C.J. Daniels a little bit more now that he's healthy too.
Yeah. So let's kind of get a little more focused now, because that the game environments, we kind of talked about a whole lot of different stuff. Let's take a look at what we got going on in the chat. I see we got our guy Huncho in the chat. Welcome. And then we got Myron here. Myron's been with us for the last few. Glad to have you here. He says Mark Fletcher is going to run wild tomorrow night. Yes, I've got a big Mark Fletcher hot take that is going to be coming up. Darren says, my mind, the most dominant unit left in the playoffs is the Miami D-line, but if Chambliss buys a few extra seconds on a few plays, then can they hit the plays down the field? Well, it also ties into what Huncho's saying. Chambliss, number 1 in time of release in the country. So here's the bottom line, is what Trinidad Chambliss did against Georgia was like pure magician type stuff, right? Like stuff that we've seen out of guys like Lamar Jackson, Johnny Manziel, Diego Pavia. I'm sure there's a few that I'm missing because I'm just going off the top of my head here. But the way he was escaping pressure and making things happen off script and in that Georgia game was insane. So the question is he going to be able to do that against Miami's pass rush, which I believe to be the best, if not one of the best in the country? So do you think that Chambliss is going to be that dude again here in this semifinal, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, we saw it with Louisville and just like Hunter was saying, Louisville and SMU, the 2 teams they struggle with, 2 of the teams they struggle with are also quick pass release. And so I think Chambliss is gonna have some success. And so where I do think, kind of like how I felt last week, I think Kejuan Lacey, I mean, literally, he didn't have really a great game other than the 2 touchdowns because it was 1st and goal. And so you're talking about, we always talk about looking for those guys that are due positive touchdown regression. Well, Lacey is a guy that's due negative touchdown regression, and at his insane ownership, you got to be willing to take a stand somewhere. So, like, are you going to fade Lacey or are you going to fade Tony? Because I'm not going to fade Fletcher. I don't know. You guys can do whatever you want, but I'm not fading Fletcher tomorrow. That's just too cheap for his workhorse running back.
So, yeah. So, I guess what I'm saying is Chambliss is going to be my QB1 on this slate. He's in the lines that I play, he's going to be the one that I play the most. Is he your QB1 or are you looking somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, probably just because it just makes so much sense. The only other one that I could get behind you arguing for making a case for quarterback 1 is Fernando Mendoza. But the thing is, they don't really if they don't need him, they won't. Like if Himby and Black are having success, and he's not throwing for 3 touchdown passes, he's not going to get there. But I'm not going to play. I'm probably not going to play Dante Moore. He already struggled against them the first meeting, where he only threw for 186 and 2 interceptions. Oregon dominated Texas Tech, and he still struggled in that game. Now he's going to have low ownership. If you want to take a chance on him, he's going to be the lowest, obviously, of the 4. And then Beck, I haven't really decided because he's one of those guys that I just I think can be great, lights out sometimes, and he can be absolutely awful other times.
So one thing that I've been trying to do as I've started building for this slate is just kind of in my mind, like mentally make a case for playing a guy, right? Because we've talked about this before. On a short slate, you got to find the top 2 quarterbacks if you want to win the money, right? So it's like rationalizing in your mind why you should play a guy. And so we can kind of make a game out of this, right? Like if you're in the chat watching right now, make your case for one of these other quarterbacks that's not named Trinidad Chambliss. Like, why is Mendoza or Beck or Moore going to end as one of the top QBs of the night? Because what I keep coming back to with all 3 of them is for Mendoza, the argument is, well, what if Oregon tries to take away the run? And with all the RPOs that Indiana runs, if Oregon is loading the box or if Oregon is playing man coverage, they're either going to lend themselves to the second or the third part of that play, right? Like where Mendoza gets to use his legs or where he gets to hit the pass in the RPO, right? Like the natural way to play Mendoza is just to think that Oregon's going to sell it to stop the run, which I think is a possibility. For Dante Moore, the argument is, well, what if Indiana can't run, what if Oregon can't run at all? Like they've got a banged up running back room, more on that in a minute. They didn't have a whole lot of success against Indiana in the first game. What if they just can't run and Dante Moore gets to throw it 40, 50 times? And then the argument to me for Beck would be, what if this game environment just takes off and this is a shootout and the other one is just stuck in the mud, right? So to me, out of all 3 of those cases, the one that to me has the most merit is Mendoza, but I definitely could see a scenario where Beck or Moore gets there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what you have to do, like we've been talking about. You got to make a case for, someone being lower owned and why it could work. And I think you make great points there. If Oregon, their run gets shut down, he's going to be throwing, garbage time touchdowns still count for fantasy. And so, but something I want to reference back to Darren, because he's making the comment, well, some guys are naturally touchdown scorers. Okay, I just pulled it up just for some reference. So if anybody wants to argue, they can, but I believe the 4 best running backs that Miami's faced this year is Jeremiah Love, Jaden Baugh, Isaac Brown, and Bo Jackson. Okay? Can you guess how many yards those 4 running backs combined obtained against Miami?
So I know Love didn't do a whole lot because that was the weird game where we were literally talking while the game was going on, like, hey, why aren't they playing Jeremiah Love? What is going on here? So I know Love didn't do a whole lot. Ball, Florida did nothing, so that can't be a lot either. You said how many rushing yards combined?
Yeah, for all 4 of them combined.
I'm going to say 120. That'd be about a 30-yard average.
No, it would be that if you took out Isaac Brown. Isaac Brown did have 113. But
wow, okay.
All 4 of them combined had 247 for an average of 62 yards rushing.
Wow.
And so
and that's carried by Isaac Brown.
Carried by Isaac Brown. And so that's where I'm saying, like, you can fade. I think you can fade Lacey with the chalk because, just like last week, if he doesn't find the end zone twice on those short runs, like the one pass, they got tackled at the 1 yard line. That's a passing touchdown if he doesn't get tackled right there. And it took 22 carries last week, and he still didn't get 100 yards. And so that's just one thing that I'm not sure if I want to get there. I mean, I may do one just in case or something like that. But again, you got to make a stand, and you have him being black. You could just rotate those guys for cheap for your second running back, and then pay up at the receiver spot.
So let's we kind of started talking about running backs. Let's get caught up in the chat, and then let's just officially move to running backs. You good with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And one thing I will add with quarterbacks is something that I did look up. The ownership is pretty flat after Chambliss. Chambliss is going to be the most owned quarterback. It's pretty flat among the other three guys. So if you think that like, oh, you're going to be getting some big ownership edge, you're really not unless you fade Chambliss. So if you're playing a lot of Chambliss, which I am, I'm telling you straight up, I am, then pick your guy among the rest of the three. And so we had Darren making points more if he's playing catch up all day. Mendoza attacking the Oregon secondary. Yeah, I still don't think that. I really think the Oregon defense is all that great, but we'll see. And then Huncho making a great point here. It's the second matchup of the year. We definitely saw Ohio State last year blow them out when that happened. Yes, maybe there's something with this Oregon team that they've been able to, kind of get found out, right? So that's absolutely something that could happen. Darren, Isaac Brown, hard for Longhorns to talk about. Hey, we've struck out so far, but that just means we got more money to offer for the guys that actually want to come be a Longhorn, okay? It's a long portal season. Meanwhile, we got North Texas, basically the entire roster defecting to Zach's Cowboys. So, Zach, all the guys that Darren rooted for this year, you get to root for next year.
Yep, pretty much.
And then lastly, I see we got our guy Dan Brown in the chat. Welcome, Dan. Glad to have you here. So now let's officially talk running back. So, Zach, would it be safe to say that your big stand is that you are lower on Lacy than consensus after what we just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, we're recording tonight, and, it starts tomorrow evening, so I could change before then. But like we talked about, you want to play chalk, especially on 2-game slate. You don't want to just 100% fade the chalk because then if it all does what it's supposed to, then you're dead. But making a stand here or there, and so that's one of them that you could do. Another one, speaking of Lacy, if you think that Ole Miss is able to move the ball, you could use Chambliss and Lacy and maybe not use a second quarterback if you don't like any of the other ones.
I don't mind that.
That's another option too. Just different ways to get different with your lineup. And then speaking of running backs, just kind of a little rant here. Again, another reason they need to move this stupid calendar. But also, I don't understand how you have guys quitting on a freaking Final Four playoff team.
Yeah,
you are 2 games from the national title, and then like with Lamar, Davison goes down, so he's going to get more opportunity in this game, and then he just gone. I just don't understand that at all. I mean, I get it for those guys playing those meaningless bowl games, but in the playoffs, when you're 2 games from the championship,
I think it's very hard to – the bottom line is they got to change the calendar. You can't have all this going on while the season's still ongoing, and you're not going to get every post-secondary academic institution in the United States to switch their academic calendar. So what they should have done was they should have ended the winter portal window and kept the spring portal windows. What they should have done. But, hey, so – one thing I'll add on Lacy, and then we're going to talk about the Oregon backs like you just mentioned. So one thing I will say about Lacy is where I went wrong on him last week, we were pretty right about him not being super effective against Georgia, right? But he scores the 2 touchdowns, and he largely scored the 2 touchdowns just because he gets so much guaranteed volume, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to touch the ball 20 times. Is there anybody else on this slate that you feel super confident is going to get 20 carries?
Fletcher. That's the only other one.
I think Fletcher's the most safe bet, but even then, we were wondering the Texas A&M game, hey, why aren't they running Fletcher more? like I could just Miami's play calling sometimes puzzles me, and so I just think with Lacey, you are locking up that guaranteed volume.
Yeah, and that's why he's going to be that's why him and Fletcher are both going to be 70% owned because they're the only two guaranteed to basically take 90% of the rushing running back snaps because him and Black, they run plenty, but it's basically a 50-50 split. So if they run 30 times, they only get 15 apiece.
So kind of the next point, we kind of mentioned it already. Oregon, if you haven't noticed yet, Jane Lamar is out. Jordan Davison is out. Mekhi Hughes, he's on a milk carton somewhere because he's missing. So,
well, he's in the portal too. So
he's in the portal too.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. So he's out too for sure. So Noah Whittington, and De'Aaron Hill are the last two running backs left standing against Indiana. They're the last two running backs for Oregon. It's all pretty much anybody's been talking about, like in our DFS chat today, is like, hey, like, look, Oregon's only got two running backs. So I hinted at this to you before the show, Zach. Do you know what my big stand is going to be here on this slate?
Fading all of them or
ding, ding, ding.
Okay.
I am going to be very much below the field, if not a full fade of both Oregon running backs. And the reason why is twofold. A, this team has shown that they're going to be running back by committee, no matter how big that committee is. So Whittington and Hill are going to split. It's going to be a split. You're not going to get some 80-20, 90-10 split. It's going to be a split. And secondly, do you know how many running backs have scored more than, by my count, do you know how many running backs have scored more than 13 fantasy points against Indiana this season?
Probably like 2.
You're close. 1. Bonus points if you know who it was.
Against Indiana.
13 running back that scored 13 fantasy points against Indiana. The hint I will give is that he scored, hold on one second, 19 plus 11. He scored 30.
Trying to think who they played.
Mm-hmm. He's good.
I'm not trying to cheat, but I just need to see who they played.
Do you want me to show you the hint that Darren gave?
Katron Allen.
Close. Nick Singleton.
Okay, it was one of those two. That's what I was thinking.
So that is the only back that has scored more than 13 DraftKings points in a game against Oregon this season. Against Indiana this season. So to me, that just makes it really hard to palate playing a running back against Indiana. And now we know it's gonna be a split. Maybe your argument is, well, De'Aaron Hill's only 4,300. If he gets a 40% split and he puts up 10 fantasy points, could that be good for you? Possibly, but he still has to go out there and do it against this defense that doesn't give that up to anybody. So my big stand is going to be, I am largely fading those two guys. I'm going to be playing a lot of Lacey, and there's another guy that I'm going to be playing a metric crap ton of. Do you know who the guy that I'm pretty much lock buttoning tomorrow is?
Mark Fletcher.
Myron was on it earlier. Mark Fletcher against Ole Miss. I think that people have such a short-term memory to think that, or just when they watch football. But when Nate Frazier, before he got injured, he was just running all over Ole Miss. If Nate Frazier never gets hurt, I think that you're very much seeing big time rushing production from him. And then I think you're going to get big time production from Mark Fletcher in this one. So, I think Fletcher is going to go crazy. And I think that he's the running back you're going to have in your lineups.
Yeah. So a couple comments for Darren.
Yes.
So first, Lamar is not at Oregon anymore. He's the guy that we were ranting about.
Yes, he's out.
He's in the transfer portal. And then Shamar Brown, he had 5 snaps.
So
like they were up, and it was the end of the game. Like,
so to kind of, it's not nothing, but I don't think it's enough to make me put Shamar Brown in my standard DFS pool. I would not fault you if you wanted to play him in Showdown. I would not fault you if you wanted to put him in like an anytime touchdown bet. But I don't think that's enough for me to want to put him in my DFS player pool. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I could see playing him in Showdown, but it's not something that I'm going to be like, oh, that's a reason to fade Mark Fletcher. Like, he's still going to get the majority of the carries, probably 80 to 90% of them. And I feel like they just used him, I think, because I don't know if Fletcher just need a breather or something. I mean, Fletcher started the drive with a 19-yard run and a 4-yard run before they brought in Brown.
The game was essentially over when they brought in Brown.
Yeah, they were just running the clock. I mean,
and Ohio State kind of let him score.
Yeah, he scored the touchdown with 55 seconds because they were letting him score so they could get the ball back.
Yeah. So last thing to talk about at the running back position is we got 2 Indiana guys. We mentioned it already. They're pretty much a 50-50 split, right? And they're probably both going to see around 15 carries in this one. It's what happened against Alabama. It was pretty mirrored what happened with them the first game against Oregon. So do you have a lean between Hemby and Black? Which one you're playing here on this slate?
No, I mean, because usually my lean is whichever one's cheaper. But last week there was a bigger price gap and there was more games. This one is only 2 games. They're literally about the same price. So I'm probably going to do a lineup with Hemby. I'm going to do another lineup pretty similar that has Black. I mean, just mix them both. And then about the Oregon running backs, same thing. Like you're saying, probably fade. I'm saying if I do one, it's probably going to be Hill because there's that 1,700 price difference, and we've seen him make some explosive plays even in the passing game too. So I think they prefer Hill as the pass game running back. So that would be the one that I picked if I was picking one.
So the only thing I will add, let me see if this tracks to what I thought it would. If you play Deere Hill, you can almost play anybody. Almost. Yeah, you have to make a few.
I'm guessing you can get Chambliss and Mendoza, and then
you can get a lot of the top receivers and the 2 top quarterbacks if you do play Deere Hill. So if you're sitting there thinking it's like, hey, this game's going to be a game for the stars, the playmakers are going to shine. Deere Hill allows you to play a lot of those playmakers if you do. To bring it back to the Indiana, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say if I had to pick my pool tonight, it's probably going to be Fletcher, Black, and Hemby and Hill, and maybe Lacey. I still haven't really decided on that one just because his price. Because I feel like I may want to play Indiana receiver over Lacey.
So I think I'm leaning slightly on Hemby over Black, slightly. And the reason why, I feel like when I watch Indiana, I wish I had more data to back this up other than just like my own eye test. I feel like when I watch Indiana, when they want to run inside zone, they do it with Hemby. And when they want to run like power, counter, those type of runs, they do it with Black. And I really think that they're going to want to really go RPO heavy against Oregon. And I think that lends itself to running inside zone. I think that lends itself to Roman Hemby. And you look at the box score the first time the 2 teams played, Hemby had more success. So I do think I'm going to lean a little bit Hemby. But the field seems to be matching me because he does project to be more owned than Black as well. So what do you do? Let's get caught up here, and then you want to move to wide receiver?
One other thing that I wanted to mention, just if you notice there, I just try to add some, like showdown guys, like all those guys like Pringle, Martin, Harris, Taylor. Those are all super risky. Harris is like the only other running back they have. So, he could get tossed in because, as Mike says, if they have 8 guys, they have 4 guys, they're going to use them all. But those are, I would not use those guys probably on a main lineup. I would just stick to, and even Logan Diggs, you could probably throw him in there too. That was more when we thought that Lacey might be kind of limited. Yeah. But it obviously was not. He wasn't limited. He was still wearing the brace, but he wasn't limited. And then down underneath that is the kickers, just for the showdown, like towards the
Yeah.
bottom of their. If people like doing kickers, I don't like doing kickers personally, just because I like the upside. Now, if I was going to pick kickers, it would be from the Oregon Indiana game, because I think of the two, that could be the one that turns into a defensive. You need points, rock fight.
Yeah, I agree with that logic. So let's get caught up in the chat, and then let's talk wide receivers, because there's a few. I think there's a few interesting cases we want to talk about at wide receiver. So Myron, I think you hit the nail on the head here. Fletcher, Black, and keep it pushing. Fletcher going to run wild. Indiana is going to lean on Oregon, causing Black to get loose. I like the idea of playing Fletcher plus your favorite Indiana back. I also think this is a pretty good 3 running back slate also. So I think you could play those two. If you like Lacey, you can play Lacey. If you like one of the Oregon guys, you can. Darren says maybe we go 5 wide and only use 1 running back. Hey, I like the running backs on this slate. So I might be playing some 3 running back builds. And then, yes, of the actual skill level of the kickers, I think Ole Miss has the best kicker left. So for sure, I think that there could be something there. He might get 1 or 2 deep that could really help you. And really, let's be honest, even in showdown, a kicker kicking a 30-yarder isn't going to help you out. A guy like Ole Miss that could hit multiple 50-yarders, that can help you out. So
yeah,
so I get that.
And the other reason I don't like kickers is because if it's a tight game late and, a team's driving and they're down and a field goal is not going to help them, they're going to go for it. They're not going to mess with the field goal. So that's just another reason whenever I'm like, I could get a guy that, he might get 1 catch, but if it's 1 catch for 30 yards and a touchdown, that could beat the kicker score.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk wide receivers now. So the big white whale, the great white shark, the alpha, the king of this slate at wide receiver is Malachi Toney at 6,400. He's been kind of a letdown through 2 CFP games, though, Zach. So are you just instantly going back to trusting Malachi Toney, or are you staying away?
I'm probably going to trust it against Ole Miss. I mean, we saw Zachariah Branch. His ADOT is like 2 yards, but he was getting peppered all night long. And I think we're going to see the same with Toney. The difference between Branch and Toney is Toney can break any. I mean, Branch can too, but we see it a lot more with Toney than we do with Branch. The one thing that disappointed me on the DraftKings slate is, with it only being 2 games, they made the pricing very soft on
It's
everybody.
very soft. It's very easy.
Like, I would rather have had Toney be where he should be at like 8,000. So you actually have to make a decision. Kind of like the other night whenever I was 100% on Jeremiah Smith at 8,400. And people
were right about, by the way.
Because his price. But with Toney, they're like, oh, well, that's cheap. I can just lock him in. And so you really have to have a very confident case for fading him, because like we talked about, there's just not a ton of those Skylar Bell type, target Chris Bell, Skylar Bell, all those guys that were just target monsters on their teams. And Toney's one of them.
So to me, the easiest case to fade him would be to play one of the other Miami receivers, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a lean between Marion and Daniels? Because I think I do.
So I'm going to check real quick to make sure I'm right. But from watching that game, I felt like they were targeting CJ Daniels a lot more now that he's healthy last game.
So I think Daniels got more design targets, but I think Marion actually ended the game with more targets. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah. So Marion actually led the team with targets with 7.
And
they all had 5 catches. Marion 7 targets, Daniels 6, and Toney 5. And then guess who number 4 was? It wasn't a receiver. It was Mark Fletcher.
Mark Fletcher. Yeah. More evidence to play Mark Fletcher. So yeah, I'm kind of leaning Keelan Marion. He is at such a low price that he, kind of like what we talked about with De'Aaron Hill, he really allows you to fill out the rest of your lineup however you want. The fact that he led the team in targets, that's not nothing. And we've seen him over the stretch run of the season. He has been their big play guy. So I really like the idea of getting a guy who's a big play guy at $3,800. He could very well break the slate open. Also, another thing that I haven't mentioned yet somehow, Ole Miss is by far the fastest team on this slate in terms of tempo, in terms of seconds per play, in terms of total plays. So you're just going to get more snaps in that game. And to me, that affects the wide receivers more than anything, because if you're getting more snaps, they're getting more catches. And in a PPR format like DraftKings, if there's more catches to go around, there's more fantasy points to go around. So I do like the idea generally of getting my wide receivers from that game.
Yeah. I think that's what everybody's going to do, which, I mean, there's a good reason for it. And so, yeah, I like that idea. Or if you're wanting to double stack, if you think, that's another option. We haven't talked about fading Fletcher, but if you wanted to get some cojones and fade Fletcher, and you're thinking double stack Tony and either Daniels or Marion with Beck, that's an option too.
Mm-hmm. So let's keep it in the same game here, because I think Myron asked a question, a very good question. This is going to be one of the stories of the slate, and going to be one of the make or breaks of the slate. Is everybody's playing Trinidad Chambliss. Everybody's probably going to be playing him stacked. So you're going to have to find the right stacking partner. And is that stacking partner going to be Wallace or Stribling? When we talked about this prior to New Year's Day, we were in agreement that it was Stribling. And honestly, if you played Stribling, you probably wouldn't have been disappointed if you just looked at the raw points you ended up with. The only way you would have been disappointed is if you compared it to Harrison Wallace, who was the breakout star of that New Year's Day game against Georgia. So, Zach, are we going to ride it out with Stribling? Or are we switching it up to Harrison Wallace?
Yeah, I'm riding it out with Stribling. Number one is, granted, it's not very much. He's cheaper. Number two, box score watchers, the casuals that are going to be playing this, they're driving up the ownership to Wallace again. Wallace is currently projected for about 11% higher. And
quite substantial, because it's like 22 and 33 is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, like Wallace is currently the second highest owned after Tony, Wallace and Surratt. And so that's another way to get different. And like we talked about, it's a lot more condensed. Stribling didn't have, it wasn't nothing. He had 9 targets for 7 catches, 122 yards. He just didn't find the end zone. He literally had that deep ball late. He just couldn't break away. Otherwise, he would have got a touchdown and likely had the same score as Wallace, pretty close.
And I mentioned this on my show. Go check out the full show if you haven't already, by the way. I mentioned this on my show, but to me, how that play played out said a lot about what this team thinks of DeJon Stribling. Because if you watch that replay, it was man-to-man coverage across the board. And Chambliss pretty much took the snap and threw it, like didn't even read anything, just knew where his matchups were and threw the ball. And he went to DeJon Stribling. He knew Stribling was going to beat his man and get open and create a big play. And to me, that shows the trust that Chambliss has in him. And I'm gonna value that trust, and I'm gonna go back to Stribling. I am going to have Wallace in my player pool. I'm not going to get totally blanked if it does end up being a Harrison Wallace game. But to me, Stribling, I like what I see out of him in terms of the eye test. I like that I'm getting reduced ownership, reduced cost. Give me Stribling.
Yeah, here's another stat for you too. In that game, he had 33 snaps. How many snaps did he run a route?
32?
33.
Oh, okay. That's pretty
100%. 100%. And Wallace his was about the same, 40 and 39. So those two are by far, the highest. But I always think, now we haven't seen the production yet, but I always think Daquan Wright is a little sneaky, especially in the red zone. Last week they throw it to freaking Luke Haas for his
Luke Haas. All of my best ball teams in 2024 that lost money were looking at that Luke Haas touchdown like, bro.
It was like his third catch of the season.
Yeah.
But Wright is usually the guy that they look for in the red zone. But they were targeting, Caden Lee had 7 targets out of the slot.
So if I may make the case for Caden Lee here, we mentioned earlier how Miami has been killed by these quick time of release quarterbacks, right? Well, when the ball's coming out quick, it often goes to the slot. And who plays the slot? Caden Lee. So I think that Lee could be in for himself a game. Like, even if he doesn't break off any big plays, if he just gets you like 7 for 70 or something like that, you're going to be happy with that on a 2-game slate. So Caden Lee is a guy that's definitely going to make my player pool, definitely going to be on my radar. And I think that probably the 2 values I'm playing the most of, I haven't made all of my lines yet, but the 2 values on paper that I'm probably playing the most of are Caden Lee and Keelan Marion.
Yeah. Lacey doesn't really get catches. In the last, let's see, 6 games, he's had 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 targets.
I think on paper that's a valid strategy point. I don't think it's what Ole Miss does.
Yeah, he just doesn't get. He has 0 receiving touchdowns. He has very little. They just don't really use him in the passing game.
Now, the team that would throw screens all day would be Georgia, but a lot of them would beat a Branch.
Yeah,
we really missed out on a huge Zachariah Branch slate if Georgia had beat Ole Miss. All right. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about the second game now. We'll kind of very briefly go over these 2 and then wrap it up because we've talked about longer than I thought we would, which is good. A lot of good discussion here. So let's talk about the last 2 teams. First off, Indiana. I am leaning Surratt for Indiana. He's the one that had the big game against them in the first time they met. He also just seems to always score a touchdown. He scored touchdowns in, I believe, his last 4 games. So, I don't know. Am I crazy for just going right back to Surratt, or is there another guy that you like?
No, I mean, I like Cooper too. But yeah, Surratt has been the guy. And if I'm not mistaken, check and make sure. No, I thought Virgil had more stuff than he did. But Terrence Carter, he had a big game, and he's a big tight end. Well, Surratt is the bigger of the 2 receivers. He's a bigger guy. And so if I'm liking Tony and Surratt, then that's even more evidence for me to use Stribling over Wallace, because otherwise I'm having the top 3 owned receivers right there. Boom, boom, boom.
Now, you remember how we were making the cases for the quarterbacks earlier? I would make a case for Becker as a value option. If Oregon if they decide to play a lot of man coverage, it felt like Charlie Becker, it felt like he was the guy that Mendoza looked for in man coverage, especially on that touchdown. So I think there's a case to be made for him. Yeah. Byron says Charlie B for Nashville. I don't mind the idea of Becker as a value option, but he's not going to be like a core play of mine or anything like that.
Yeah. And see, like with him, I would rather just play Caden Lee because he had 7 targets.
Yeah.
Becker, he got the touchdown and it was a long one. So everybody's like, oh yeah, Becker. But his snaps went down again. Mm-hmm. He had 13 snaps. So that's just not very much volume you're looking at for 4,200 to have the opportunity. Can they score a touchdown? Yes. But for 4,200, you need probably a touchdown and some yards and stuff. And so Caden Lee's playing more snaps. He's had more targets, and he's cheaper. And it goes with the thing of Chambliss getting the ball out quick.
Yeah. I still think I'm with you. I do like Lee over Becker, but I think Becker's going to make my pool.
Yeah. And then Oregon, man.
Yes.
Good luck on that.
So the one thing that I mentioned on my show when talking about Oregon going up against Indiana, I think I mentioned this. I can't remember if I did or not. It's so long ago because Jordan Davison was still active when I recorded my show. Indiana's linebackers. Indiana loves to play two high safeties, right? Which means that their linebackers end up in coverage against some better athletes a lot of times, right? If that's how I expect both teams to play, Kenyon Sadiq would be a matchup nightmare against those linebackers. So to me, that lends myself to like Sadiq. Or the counterpoint would be, hey, every time I watch Oregon, Malik Benson's their wide receiver one now. I've always been a believer in the talent of Benson back when he was at Alabama and Florida State. So, why not just trust the talent for Benson? So to me, those are going to be the only two that I play. I'm gonna take my shots at Sadiq and just say, hey, what if he's this matchup nightmare athletic freak? And then I'm going to take my shots at Benson and say, hey, what if he's just that dude in this receiving core now? Those are where I'm leaning. Am I a crazy person?
No, I agree with that too. Sorry, I was looking up something because I do want to mention one more guy for Indiana.
Okay, go for it.
That is going to be 0 owned, and that's EJ Williams.
Okay.
And he is actually the reason why Becker is seeing less snaps because Becker was getting more involved when Williams was hurt.
Okay.
When Williams is back. Williams had 16 snaps to only 13 for Becker. And Becker is the sexy play. And like Darren mentioned, he had big catches. Yes, he did against Penn State and Ohio State. But that's going to draw the ownership up. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at a value play. Do I want to play a value play that is probably the like sixth or seventh highest owned receiver, or get a value play on the same team that's going to be no owned at all?
Right.
And so that's my thinking on that. And I faded Becker last week, and then he goes and gets the freaking touchdown. I'm going to be fading him again this week. I mean, if he does it to me again, whatever. And so I'm probably going to look at EJ Williams for cheap guy. But yeah, going back to Oregon, Sadiq has been really well for them. Jamari Johnson also.
Another tight end, yeah.
Yeah, the game plan was clear. They knew that Texas Tech struggled with tight ends, and they were getting the ball to both of those guys. And then Gary Bryant, Jacarian Moore. Let me look at what their snaps were last week.
I'll filibuster while you do that. So the crazy thing about Oregon is I feel like they haven't played a normal playoff game yet, right? Like they jump out to the huge lead against JMU, and it's JMU, right? Of course they blow them out, and then JMU makes it look like not a blowout at the end. And then the Texas Tech game, Texas Tech just does an absolute nothing burger offensively, and Oregon just doesn't really have to do a whole lot. And so I just feel like they haven't really played like a normal game yet. And I really wish they have, so that way I would know a better indication of how to feel about a Jacarian Moore or a Jamari Johnson in seeing them in like a quote unquote normal game environment.
Yeah, because last week it was 39 snaps for Sadiq, 34 for Johnson, 33 for Benson, Whittington 27, McClellan 21, Moore 21, and then everybody else was 12 or less.
So in other words, Sadiq and Johnson and Benson were the full-time players.
Yeah, but like you mentioned, they didn't have to keep passing because Texas Tech couldn't even get a first down. And so it's interesting to see in a game that everybody thinks they're going to be having to pass more. Like you mentioned, this is going to be the first one that they've had to pass. So now that those guys are healthy, what's it going to look like? Mm-hmm. And so I don't mind taking chances because like Jacarian Moore, he is literally $100 more than Becker. And so, like, if everybody's going to be playing Becker because they remember the touchdown last week, nobody's going to play him. He still had 6 targets over the last 2 games, even if the snaps weren't there.
3% is what I'm seeing on Jacarian Moore.
Yeah, they're not going to use him. The only one they're going to use is Sadiq if they use one.
All right, so I think that actually wraps it up on all 4 teams. Let's get caught up in the chat, though. So, Darren, always like to see who returns punts in a game like these, and if it's a wide receiver, I'm more likely to roll the dice.
Tony.
Malachi Tony. That's who that sounds like to me. He almost busted one against Ohio State. Or no, it wasn't Ohio State. It was Texas A&M. My bad. He almost had one against Texas A&M. And then Myron says, worried about Tony. Seems like he's lost his breakout speed in the past month. I don't disagree with that. The only thing I would say is they just haven't done anything in terms of their passing offense in the last 2 games, right? Like The Texas A&M game, it was the gale force winds, couldn't throw the ball at all. Ohio State game, they go up early and they're able to just do what Mario Cristobal does and be super conservative the rest of the game. So I do get that he hasn't had any of those explosives and he hasn't been the same. Just what if we get a more normal passing environment, right? That would be the counter argument. And then Darren with a good strategy point here. It says what works in the first game doesn't work in the rematch, thinking coaches focus on what the other team did well in the first game. So these teams aren't going to break out an entirely new playbook, right? It's just going to be some adjustments and some kind of tweaks. But for the most part, these offenses are going to do what they do and do what they've done all season long. You're not putting in a whole lot of new stuff, especially just because it's a rematch. So I really think that there's merit in looking at, what happened in the first game and telling a story, and then also thinking about the chess moves off of it. Okay, so Elijah Surratt had a big game against Oregon the first time. How would Oregon try to limit Surratt? What would that do to the rest of the offense? And you go for it like that. But I do think that there are pros and cons to looking at the rematch. You kind of have anything to add on that point?
No, I agree. It doesn't always tell the whole story, but some guys are just matchup proof, and whatever scheme you're going to do at them, it's not going to matter.
If you think about the Georgia Ole Miss game, we were 100% right that both quarterbacks were going to be very good. and they were the first time.
It was exactly the same type of game. It was a shootout on both games. And Branch got there both games. Stribling got there both games. So it's not going to be the exact same statistics. I don't think we're going to see Himby with 19 carries and 2 touchdowns and Black only get 7 carries, right? I think it's going to be more closer split. But yeah, I agree the same thing. And then Darren had a question about Brady getting any snaps. No, he did not. They only use Nowakowski, the tight end,
yes.
Surratt, Williams, Cooper, and Becker. And then Black had a couple, but that was it.
Yes, I second Myron's point. I think Nowakowski is a really good showdown play. I think he's a really good anytime touchdown bet. He was on the field a lot against Indiana or against Alabama. Wow, I keep doing that today.
Yeah, you want to know something funny? He had the most. Granted, some of this was pass blocking, but he had the most pass snaps of any of them with 24.
I could buy that.
But he only ran a route on 54% of them.
Well, and they just rotate those receivers a lot.
Yeah.
And so I could buy that he was on the field a ton. It looked like he was on the field a ton watching it. And, they got him involved a little bit. Like I said, I think he's a great showdown play. I think he's a great anytime touchdown bet. The way pricing works on DraftKings, I don't know if I'm going to get there. I'd rather just pay $200 more for Caden Lee or a little bit more than that for Keelan Marion. But I think that he's definitely worth a look in those other formats. Which, side note, I really think on 2-game slates like this, DraftKings should reduce the minimum to like 1,500 and really make it a decision on if you really want to punt on some of these guys. I think it'd be a little more interesting if they did.
Yeah, and then down there at the bottom, that's just more of those, Luke Haas type. They haven't had much of anything all season, other than Odom and Watkins have been a little bit more involved than those other guys.
I'm not going to lie to you. If Luke Haas scores again, I'm going to actively be angry.
Well, he's not even listed on the depth chart. That's the funny thing, because they put out the depth chart for this week, and he's not even literally listed because they only do a 2 deep. So
I was such a believer when he was at Arkansas. Just watching him his freshman year, he looked so good, so athletic. And in 2024, I drafted him in best ball all the time when he was at Arkansas. Just so much ownership in best ball, and he completely let me down. So if he has this late career renaissance as this anytime first touchdown guy for Ole Miss, I'm gonna be pretty irritated. Which, quick side note, now obviously I'm a Carolina Panthers fan, so I'm a little bit biased here. But I feel like if you just bet Tommy Tremble first touchdown in every Panthers game, I feel like you'd have to be up for his career. I feel like he scores so many first touchdowns. Anyway.
Yeah,
So
and that's the thing too with the pricing. We're talking about these value receivers and stuff. You don't really need to get there because the running backs are cheap, Tony's cheap. The only reason you would need that is if you're trying to get Mendoza, Chambliss, Lacey, Fletcher,
and
like
Tony.
you're stacking all those guys.
Yeah.
And so I mean, that's a possibility.
Yeah. I think that that's a viable build, honestly. I think if you did it in a smart way, because like, let's be honest, what's going to win this slate isn't going to be all of the chalk pieces. It's also not going to be all of the long shots either. Like some of the guys that we're getting on here saying that they're going to have a great game, that they're going to hit, some of those guys are going to be the optimal lineup. Some of these guys are not. So it really comes together with taking your own risk tolerance, playing your guys, fading the guys you want to fade, and just being different in enough ways. Like don't play all the chalk, but don't just get super random out there.
Yeah, sometimes I see lineups in Discords, and I'm just like, you don't have to play every single guy sub 5% owned, like to be different enough.
Right.
And I know people are like first or last mentality, but you can still have chalk in your lineup. It's just about telling the story with the lineup. You know, what am I want to do here? Like, I'm going to say with the fade Lacey, I feel like Miami's going to force Chambliss to throw a lot of quick passes. So, you know, I'm going to get Chambliss and Lee and Stribling or Wallace, one of those two guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then use Fletcher and I think Indiana's just going to have their way with Oregon on the ground, so I'm going to get those guys, Black and Hippie, or like you mentioned, I think Indiana's going to shut down Oregon running game, so that's going to lead to Dante Moore getting there in garbage time and getting those. And so, yeah, the idea, especially on a 2-game slate, you don't want to go all against chalk. Like I could maybe see it like when we're talking, like if we're in, you know, September 11-game slate, and there's a plethora of options, but there's not, and the prices are there, and so you know there's going to be a lot of chalk tomorrow, and it's for good reason.
The last point that I'll kind of make on the same thread is, I don't know how to feel when people complain about chalk hitting. Because most of the time, guys that are quote unquote chalk, like we've been talking about in DFS, it's because on paper they're great plays.
Yeah,
right? It's because they make sense.
Like the other day, someone was saying the Sims fish get there. It's like I faded Sims, but I faded Sims for the fact that I thought that he wouldn't be able to use his legs, and he's not a great passer. Like I didn't fade him just because he was chalk. He was chalk because Duke was the worst defense on the slate, and they lost a bunch of dudes. Like, there was a reason, and he was cheap. There was a reason he was chalk. And so, like, when he hits, I'm just like, well, I was stupid. Like,
yeah, it's you just feel dumb when chalk hits, because it's like, why wasn't I on that guy? Like everybody else was.
Yeah, like so that's the other thing too, is just, am I going to be able to live with myself? Like the other day, I was able to live with myself even though Lacey got the 2 touchdowns.
Yes.
So can you live with yourself and not hate yourself and be one to say the fish get there and all that if you fade a guy? So if you have fear of missing out or, you know, whatever, like then don't fade a guy like Lacey.
Right.
Like make your options different at receiver. Like I want to use Cooper instead of Surratt, like something like that. And so just as we've always, you know, we always mentioned, you know, number 1 rule, don't play more than you can afford to lose. But also number 2, don't make a decision that you're not going to that you don't want to regret. So like, if you're fading Lacey just because I want to get different, like have a reason for it. Like I provided some reasons.
Yeah.
And if you agree, then okay. If not, then that's fine too. Go ahead and play him because I'm fading, he's probably going to get 3 touchdowns. So
Well, and sure enough, too, it's probably going to be like the three most ridiculous touchdowns. Where like Ole Miss, like Stribling falls at the 1, and then it's just like Kawan Lacey Wildcat for the touchdown or something like that. It's going to be like just falling in the end zone. It's not going to be 3 like long breakaway runs.
Well, and I will say though, like at the first of that game, I was like freaking out because they started that drive and he had a couple big runs. And I was like, oh, great. I'm stupid. He's going to be – and then they kind of settled in, and then he gets there with the 2 touchdowns.
My entire thesis of he was hurt very much dissipated after the first drive. I'm like, he don't look hurt. Like, he looks fine. So, yeah. Anyway, we'll not shock anybody. Your 2 favorites on this slate, we talked about them ad nauseum. Mark Fletcher, DeZon Stribling. I'm with you on these 2, buddy. I'm with you.
Yeah. And if I had to pick a quarter – so I only did 2 guys just because I think 2-game slate, you don't want to give too many. But everybody's kind of obvious. If I was picking a quarterback, it'd be Chambliss or Mendoza.
Yep.
For my quarterback. And then if I did a second running back, it'd be one of the Indiana guys.
Yeah. I can get behind that. All right. Let's get caught up in the chat. One last time for the season, sadly. Darren says, did the Longhorns basically cut Arch's roommate Livingstone in favor of another receiver in the portal or high school recruit? I don't know what happened behind closed doors, but I know basically they told him, like, hey, you're probably not going to play a whole lot here next year. You might want to go somewhere else. And he went to Oklahoma. So, fun times. I like the kid. I wish he didn't go to Oklahoma, but oh well. Anyway, Huncho saying Jamari Johnson, yes, played a ton of snaps. We think that the linebackers might be the way to target Indiana. I like it. And then Darren, Carolina plus 10.5 at home. Has there ever been a double-digit dog at home in the NFL playoffs? I think Seattle, the year of the Beastquake, may have. Don't quote me on that, though. And then Myron, as of right now, Stribling's projected to be 9.7%. That's pretty close to numbers I'm seeing as well. I think he could be one way to differentiate yourself that works out really well here on this slate. And then Darren, we were joking about Lacey, throws a TD to himself and gets a passing and a receiving touchdown. That would be craziness. But that's something that would happen. If Jeff Sims can score 60 DraftKings points, anything is possible. All right. But if you guys in the chat don't have anything, I believe that is going to close us out here. Like we said at the top tonight, y'all, this is the last live show of the season, which is crazy, but it's been a fun ride. It really has. I've enjoyed hopping on here every week and talking ball with Zach and seeing you guys in the chat, seeing what you guys think, what you guys are talking about. It's been a blast. So hopefully you guys can enjoy joining us this season as well. If you like these shows, we are hopefully going to be back for college basketball season. We're still trying to work out a time, still trying to work out how we're going to do it. But, hey, if you're subscribed to the channel, you'll know when we go live. So we're hoping to have some live shows with college basketball as well. And, Zach, I see we got a visitor. Got a guest.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago she was barking. Everybody wanted to see her. So I figured she came around because she was barking at something else again. So got her up here.
Darren saying, what's the dog's name?
Ember, like fire flames. Ember.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. And then
she's trying to get my beef jerky here.
Oh, that's what she wanted the whole time. She was just there for the jerky. That's funny. And then we got Dimitri says, thanks, y'all boys. As always, much respect. Thank you for joining us, Dimitri. I said, it's been great to have all y'all here this season. It's been a lot of fun. Zach, you got any words of wisdom to close us out?
No, I'm just appreciate you having me this year. It was fun. We don't always win and our plays don't always hit. But nobody's does. I mean, that's the
nature of the game, right?
That's why we have 30 different content providers. I mean, but it's fun. I enjoy doing it, and I enjoy talking about it. I enjoy talking about sports, and so I appreciate everybody that has joined us all year and having the comments. And just make it worthwhile, make it fun to look forward to coming and joining and doing the show.
Yeah, it's genuinely been something I've looked forward to every week. Like I know we came up with this idea in the off season, right? And then to be able to carry it over into the regular season and the now the postseason. It's been a blast. And then Darren's saying, "Who's Ember's pick on underdog? What? A dog picking on underdog? That'd be kind of funny."
I guess that's the only thing we haven't talked about is game picks.
Yeah, let's close it out with that. Let's close it out with the official game picks. And if you want to get out a total bet, now's the time to do it too. Game number 1, Miami Ole Miss. Who you got, Zach?
So I'm not one that likes to talk about the whatever you call it, the narratives and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that Ole Miss wins just because I kind of want Ole Miss to win the Natty just to spite Link for what he did.
Yeah.
But my brain says Miami is the better team and is going to win the game.
So
as much as I want Ole Miss.
I think it's Miami, man. They're so good on the line of scrimmage on both sides. It's just hard for me to get past that and pick against that right now. So I think it's going to be Miami in that game, and I'm taking the over. I've actually got a bet on the over already. I think that game's going to be fireworks because I think that Trinidad Chambliss is going to be doing his thing. I think that Miami's going to be able to score. I see points being scored. And then in game number 2, Dan Lanning versus Kurt Signetti, Oregon versus Indiana. Who you think?
I'm like an Indiana. They just look so good. And fun thing is, because they've always played at the same time as other games that I've wanted to watch for, Big 12 purposes or for whatever purposes. So that game against Alabama was actually the first game that I sat down and watched a full game at Indiana this year. And I was just really impressed with everything, offensively, defensively, special teams. And then I think Oregon, Davison's hurt. The other guys are leaving. I know the defense guy was like a backup or whatever, but you still have that. You still have that in the locker room, like people wondering why are these guys quitting on us quitting on the team on a big stage. And I do think that Moore is probably the least talented of the quarterbacks, in my opinion.
I get that.
And so I think Indiana is going to exploit that, similar to what they did in the first matchup.
So I'm going to make a metaphor here, and I think it might make some people mad. I think that Oregon is this year's Penn State, what Penn State was last year, which is look pretty good in the regular season, but have no reputable wins, and win 2 college football playoff games where you look pretty good, but were they? Like Texas Tech hadn't really beaten anybody. James Madison certainly hadn't beaten anybody. So I don't know if Oregon's actually any good. And the time they played Indiana, they lost by 10 points when they had the benefactor of a pick 6 on their home turf. So I think Indiana's going to roll. I think Indiana is a machine. They're so well coached. They're in the right spot at the right time. Just everything's on schedule. Everything's on time. Everyone's where they're supposed to be. I like Indiana to win that game. And if I had to pick it today, I'm picking the Indiana Hoosiers to win the national championship, which is just, if you had told me 14, 15 months ago that I was going to be making that statement on a podcast with a live audience, I would have thought you were a crazy person, because Indiana winning a national football championship, utter insanity. But I think that they're going to do it. I just think that they're inevitable. I really do.
Yeah, I would agree. Of the teams left, I think Georgia was probably one of the teams that could have gave them a fight.
Mm-hmm.
I think if it's Indiana, Miami, I think it's going to be a great game.
I know people probably tired of me saying this, but I would have loved to see Indiana take on a Notre Dame or a Texas. I still think those 2 teams were 2 of the best 10 teams in the nation, and they didn't get in the bracket. So,
and I do think for viewing purposes for national title, it needs to be Miami, because I think Indiana would absolutely whop the floor with Ole Miss.
I do too. I think Ole Miss is kind of like held together by a bunch of paper clips and staples, and it's just not that far away from bursting. So Darren's saying, does Lane Kiffin get a ring if Ole Miss wins it all? I do know he gets his bonus, which is insanity. It almost has me feeling like, hey, like, does Lane Kiffin like have his daughter put in like a massive money line bet on Miami to hedge his playoff bonus? That's something that he could think about. And then Miami versus Indiana championship game, the battle for Malik Renew. That is an elite pull there, Darren. Malik Renew, Indiana basketball player. Now he plays for Miami. Had a pretty good night tonight. Yeah, that'd be hilarious also. I'm not going to acknowledge the last comment, though. Anyway, I believe that's going to close us out here, Zach. So
yeah,
thank you to everybody who's tuned in all season long. We will be back next year. We'll be back for college basketball season. If you're subscribed to the channel, you know when we go live. But thank you to you guys for joining us. Hopefully, we're able to give you guys some good info, some good strategy, some good tips to make some money, whether you're playing DFS, Showdown DFS, underdog drafts, player props, pick'ems, bets, whatever. Hopefully, we gave you guys the goods to help you guys out for this college football playoff semifinals slate. Now, all we get to do is enjoy the games. Hopefully, you guys enjoy them as well. Good luck to you guys. Thank you guys for joining us, and we will see you next season.
Thank you.